How's it going, everybody? Welcome back. Still working on the 288. Trying to get this thing more or less hammered out. I like to get them done in a day, and then I can sit in the house. I'll sit in the house sometimes, friends, and take my sandpaper and go around the transfers and ports. I like to get them real smooth and finished. I'm never in a hurry. I am super low production. I don't take a lot of work or really any work. And most of the work I do is just for my buddies. I like porting saws for my buddy. Gives me something to do, and they enjoy running them. So let's do another saw. This one's for Caleb, my buddy down in Texas. He runs a tree service. The man's a cutter. He cuts every day, all day. He was one of the first guys one of the only guys that I didn't know. Actually, the only guy I've ever not known that I sold the ported saw to was early on, and he really wanted that 440 I built. So I ended up sending it his way, and he's still stacking timber with that saw. Pretty cool. When that saw blows up, I'd like him to send me the top end or send me the saw back so I can do it again. But we're going on 2.5, 3 years, and that saw is still cutting wood. So that's pretty good. That's for a production saw. A year is a good number. 2 is really good. 3, I'm sure that thing's starting to get tired, but he says it still rocks and rolls. So anyhow, this is an OEM cylinder. It's a 288 cylinder. It's a 54 ZN13. It's a Mall cylinder. OEM. I did the transfers on this first. There is some cleanup to do on this cylinder. The question is, why didn't I clean up the cylinder first? Well, the transfer that's on here, not transfer ports, but the actual transfer from the piston. This is from a saw that was overheated. It's very minuscule. I can barely feel it with my finger. But in today's video, what if you don't have money for a new top end? Can you save your original top end? You can often. If you have the time and you don't have a lot of money, I say try and save your OEM cylinder. Sometimes you'll sand them and clean them up for hours to find out you do have a big score. If you have a score below the exhaust port but nothing above, that usually won't affect anything. It'll hold more oil there. If it's above the exhaust port, that often will affect your compression. So again, I have a saw or two here that I built years ago that has scores in the cylinder. They're still running. My 562 has 2 big scores, one over each transfer port where it blew up and the parts of the bearings went through, got caught in the rings over the transfer ports. They're 1/16 of an inch wide and probably a 32nd deep, and they go all the way top to bottom. That saw's never made a lot of compression. 5 years I've been running it, it still hasn't blown up. So I'm not recommending, if you're building a saw for somebody else, if they're good with you sending them a cylinder that's got some scoring in it, make sure you let them know. If it's your saw and you want to play with it, have at her. I generally won't build a saw with scores in the cylinder just because I want the saw to be the best it can be. But that doesn't mean you can't slap one together with some small scores and not have a good running saw. I've done it and it works fine. Okay, I'm going to bring you guys in. I want to show you the transfer and show you, can we clean this up? Well, I'm going to show you how I do it. Scotch-Brite, sandpaper, and elbow grease is all you need. And then you can run a hone through this after if you have one. If not, make a hone from a wooden dowel, or I knew a guy, he used a roll-off wheel for, that you screw the Scotch-Brite onto for an angle grinder. He had one of those that was, slightly too small, and he would put Scotch-Brite around it and run that in and out. That did a good job. Okay, I'm going to bring you guys in. Show you guys what's going on with this here cylinder. Okay, can you guys see that? Right there. It's not terrible. I've seen a lot worse. Somebody shut this saw down, or this saw shut down just before it was going to pop. Again, here's our big transfers. Think dirt bikes, guys. Okay. Take an 80cc dirt bike apart from back in the day. Similar displacement to this, a little smaller. Look how big the transfers are. Again, look at your piston windows. Just helping you guys see how I do things. If you like how my saws run, this is how I do it. I got nothing to hide. Again, friends, I don't take a lot of builds. I take builds based on wanting to prove out theories or more content for the channel. But other than that, I don't take many builds. I'm more interested in showing you guys what I do than porting full time. Okay, you guys see that now? There you go. Notice nothing is blocking the windows. I could have cut these a little wider. But again, this is a production saw. It is going into a full-time cutting environment. If this is what he likes, I can't say every saw I build, the end user is going to love it. And if they don't love it, send it back and I'll fix it. Okay? I know Caleb. He's been my buddy for years. He's the guy that owns that 590 that went south. And it is what it is. Once in a while, you get a saw that doesn't work out. So this is the saw. I'm going to build him this saw. And I think he's going to send me 3 or 4 more saws. He's a good friend of mine. And we like each other and we help each other out. So anyhow, this saw here, he was interested in a 288. He's never owned one. So I'm going to try and make him a reliable, strong saw. I want this thing to be strong, but I want it to last. I could have cut these wider, but again, your piston skirts, I don't want the piston skirts riding on nothing. Some saws, if I'm building a really warm saw and I just really want to push the limits, I will grind them to 100%. Okay? But again, if your chamfer is riding on your piston skirt, you could wear that corner out. And the other thing is, I'm going to go around the piston. This isn't the piston for this saw. This is just a mock-up piston. I'm going to go around this piston, and it's sharp on the sides, but I'm going to go around the piston and chamfer everything, which will widen the bearing area. So I leave a little strip on there, okay? I'll leave it a little narrower because when I chamfer this, that'll take up that last little bit. If I chamfer it after I grind, and I grind right to the edge here, what ends up happening is you are narrowing the bearing surface of the piston. Not a big deal on the exhaust side, I find, or exhaust side, intake side. Remember, the wider your intake is and the wider your transfers are, the less bearing surface. Well, you can already see there's like a 1/4 inch and a little bit more on the left side here. That's it for your skirt to ride on. So be aware of that. The wider you make that intake, the more wear you're going to get on your piston skirt. That's just the way it is. Again, nothing's free. You can build a really long-running saw, but ported. People ask me that. How long will a ported saw last? I don't know. Depends on who's running it. How sharp's your chain? Do you clean your saw? Do you run good oil? It's been my experience now. They seem to last the same. Guys that blow up stock saws, blow up ported saws. Guys that don't blow up anything, you can build them the warmest saw, and it'll last. Case in point, if you guys notice my voice is a little hoarse today, I was on the phone a lot yesterday in my truck at work. A lot of meetings by phone, and I was yelling all day. Them are the breaks. Case in point, that first home light I built for bucking, that saw is warm, real warm. I did mean things to that cylinder and piston and everything on that saw. Saw's been run for a couple of years and it's still running. Okay, so but he's easy on saws, so I can turn things up quite a bit more for him than even for me. I bet you I would have blown that saw up by now. But again, I'm just a saw porter. I'm not a professional cutter. Okay, so let's go in here. I'm gonna pause it. Here, let's hit this with some Scotch-Brite before we pause it, okay? Let's go in there. This is a used piece of Scotch-Brite. It's not the sharpest. Now, when I first started doing this years ago, I was so worried about damaging the plating. You're not gonna damage the plating with this. Look at that, friends, already. Look. Okay, I'm going to hit it again. I may get a new piece of Scotch-Brite and see. Now, I prefer to go sideways, not up and down. Look at that. Okay, let's hit this side. Look at that big dark stripe there. Let's hit it. Let's see what it does. Well, does it go away? Now again, each cylinder is going to be different. Some are going to clean up easy. Depends on how hot that transfer got. It almost welds itself right to the cylinder wall. I've had some saws with thick transfer on them that I've cleaned off and had no cylinder damage after. So, oh, would you look at that? It's almost gone. I can feel it there, but not there, but I can still see it. Okay, guys, I'm going to keep going at this with a new piece of Scotch-Brite. And again, the light's on right here. See the transfer? Okay. I'm going to keep hitting it with this. If it doesn't come off with Scotch-Brite, start with sandpaper. If it's real thick, you might want to try like 200 and change sandpaper, something fairly aggressive. And then go from there, 400, 600, up to 1,000 if you want. I don't go that aggressive. My hones are 320 grit, I believe. So that's the finish I leave on a cylinder. Okay, guys, I'm going to hit this up and see if we can fix it. Okay, so basically I just sit here, put some tunes on usually, and I'll just rub it with my finger, going around and around. This is 600 grit. I use Scotch-Brite 600. I didn't use anything more aggressive than 600 because this stuff's not very thick. I'll turn this light off for you guys. When I port, this is the light I use. That way I can really see in the cylinder there. Okay, so basically what I do, I just keep sanding it and polishing it until it's gone. Take your fingernail. Let your finger tell you what's going on in there. Take your fingernail and drag it across. So right now I'm just doing this with the transfer. If I can't feel it, I consider it gone. Sometimes you can see some discoloration still. I've never had a problem with that. But make sure if you feel a little ridge there that's catching your fingernail, that's usually more transfer. If you have a score, usually it'll hook your finger, but not like if it's sticking up. If it's sticking up, it'll really hook. A lot of times the score is thinner than your fingernail and it won't fit in there. Okay, then I'll take some Scotch-Brite. Just hit it, friends. Don't be scared to really go at it. You're not going to go through the plating. If you go through the plating, you know, using Scotch-Brite and say 400 grit, 300 grit sandpaper, if you go through the plating, that cylinder was probably doomed. Just try and only work the spot where there's actually transfer. See? And I'm just putting it in my thumb and really giving her. Okay, I'm going to call that good. I'll show you guys what it looks like. Always trying to show you guys how I do things. Help you guys save money and work on your own stuff. Not everybody has money for a new cylinder. And not everybody has access to a large amount of parts, depending on what country you're in. I'm in Canada. A lot of parts that come from the States, I got to pay duty on them and stuff like that. And again, it's no big deal. It is what it is. But some places overseas, it's really hard to get parts. I've been told very expensive. So sometimes you got to use what you got. And where's that transfer? Okay, can you guys see? Here, let's run a screwdriver over that. You can still see a little discoloration, but look. It doesn't get caught, so. And again, a little discoloration here. But I can't catch it with my screwdriver. I may hit this a little bit more. And again, over the top here. And again, if that was a ridge and sticking up, it would catch my screwdriver. It's not. Now remember, I'm going to raise this exhaust roof a couple degrees, which will take care of some of that. But you guys get the idea. you just keep going. Here's a new piece of Scotch-Brite. Let's hit it with this. And again, just only try and do it on the spot where the transfer is. That way you're not, you know, you're not grinding down plating that you want to keep. And again, this takes a little bit of practice, but just hit it. Don't be afraid. The first time I did this, I was so worried. I have had one cylinder in all the ones I've cleaned up that I went through the plating trying to get the transfer off, but what ended up happening was the plating was so thin below the exhaust port, the saw had a ton of time on it that I literally just sanded through the plating. But okay, can you guys see that? There we go. So this last little bit I'm going to take off by hand. You can use a Dremel. I've used a Dremel with a split mandrel and strips of 600 grit. You can do that too. You gotta be a little braver to use tools to do this. I've always done it by hand. I don't clean a ton of cylinders up anymore, but when I used to, that's how I did it. Okay. Yeah, and I'm just hitting that last little spot. I don't feel it, but I see it. I want it all gone. Okay. Same thing, take my nail. And really, friends, I feel nothing, so. I hope this helps you guys. I like to share everything I do with you guys. And I hope it helps you save time and money and, well, not so much time. This is a sweat equity endeavor. Stuff like this is all sweat equity, but maybe you can't get a new cylinder. Maybe the saw you're working on, you can't get a cylinder, or some saws, the cylinders that are available are pretty questionable. So maybe you could save your OEM. Okay, guys, there you go. It's pretty much all gone. You can't feel any of those little black marks anymore. But these hones take off material, okay? Should I hit this with a hone, friends? Let's hit this with a hone real quick and see what it looks like. Just one in and out. Okay, I'm just going to run this in and out. Okay, just a quick little hone job, and what do we see? So I still got a little bit of transfer to take off, I think. I don't feel it though. Let's hit it one more time. Okay, ready? Yes, I hone cylinders. Been doing it for years, never damaged one honing it. Okay, I'm not sure where we left off. I ran the hone through, and look, it's pretty much all gone. Those two little dark spots, I can't feel them, but I can see them. I may hit those again. I literally feel nothing when I'm dragging my nail over it, so. Again, if you see a dark spot, sometimes the plating gets a little discolored there. That's been my experience. Okay. Just run your nail over there, and if you can't feel it, I really wouldn't worry about it. Sometimes as builders and saw nuts, we split hairs for no reason, but I honestly feel nothing on here now, so. There you guys go. If you are going to do a lot of saws, invest in some of these. They're by size. You can't just buy one. If not, use Scotch-Brite. These are expensive, friends. They're 50, well, in Canada, they're about 50, 60 bucks a piece, so. And you're probably going to need 4 or 5 different ones, depending on how many saws you work on. And again, you can save up and buy them as you need them, and that's what I've done over the years, but if not, that'll work just fine. Okay, so this cylinder's ready to rock and roll, and I hate when I see a little discoloration, but again, I can't feel it, so don't go crazy with the minutia of building, because you can drive yourself nuts sometimes doing little things that aren't necessary. This cylinder's in nice shape, OEM. I think this is going to make a real nice saw for Caleb. Okay, in the next video of this thing, I'm going to have to wash this now before I put it back on the saw. I always wash cylinders. I'll wash them multiple times. The grit from the hone gets in here, and also grit from sanding. So, and I've already done some porting on this, so it wouldn't be a bad time to give it a little rinse. In the next video, we'll do a little bit of work to the intake and the exhaust, and then this thing's ported. I'm probably going to do some, well, for sure, I always smooth out the edges on my pistons. I may do a little flow work to the windows, but all in all, this is how I would port a nice work 288. Also, the work I'm doing to the piston isn't crucial to the saw running. If he wears out the piston, which he probably will in a couple of years, he could just bolt a brand new piston in and not have issues with squish and anything like that. Again, this is a work saw. I'm inclined to do a bunch of machining to this and try and get my blowdown lower and yada, 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 up the compression. But honestly, it's a work saw. It's a tool for making money, and this thing's going to outcut a 288, and I think he's going to enjoy this saw. It's going to be lighter than his 395 and should have more power than his 395. So I think this is going to be win-win-win for everybody. So yeah, I'll leave it at that, friends. You can clean cylinders. I can't tell you if your cylinder will clean up. I don't know. I've had guys bring me cylinders. Do you think you can fix this? I always say, I don't know. You don't know if a cylinder is fixable until you start trying to clean it. Again, if you have major scoring, you're going to have to junk the cylinder. But often, a lot of cylinders will get cleaned up and are cleanable. It just depends if you want to put the time in. If you're a production cutter and you need your saw on Monday and it blew up on Friday, you're probably going to just go buy a new cylinder and slap it on there. If you're a hobbyist like me and a lot of you guys that watch, maybe you want to clean up your cylinder, well, this will do it. So there you guys go. Anyhow, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate you guys spending time on this channel, and hopefully you guys learned something from this today. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have done this, but I'm trying to make content for the advanced porter and also content for the entry-level porter. It's kind of a blend. So hopefully somebody that's new learned something today. I sure learned a lot when I started watching YouTube videos of guys building saws. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Take her easy. Later.